Hi everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm broadcasting to you from Budapest, Central Europe. All right, today everybody, we're looking at IELTS academic reading and learning vocabulary. Materials come from our websites. This reading passage is taken from our test number 1, book 1, passage 3. AEhelp.com for lots of strategy videos, 6 full practice tests for the IELTS, as well as speaking, writing help. So check us out there. I'll show you the website real quick. Looks like that, the blue background. Click on that big red button to join. When you join, you have a My Student account. Lots of goodies. If you're studying general IELTS, we got you covered. Go to this website here. Again, click that big red button there. Do yourself a favor. All right. So, back to a couple more notes as we start here. General IELTS, gieltshelp.com. Just writing it up here so you can see it at any time throughout the lesson. If you haven't yet, download our app, Academic IELTS Help, from your app store. You can also get our books from Amazon. Search for AE Helps Academic IELTS, GE Helps General IELTS. And if you have questions, don't hesitate. My name, Adrian, A-D-R-I-A-N, at aehelp.com. Hi, Rawat. Hi, Ava. Hi, Pachu. Good to see you in both classes. You're very studious. That's excellent. Hi, Rabin. Nice to see so many students joining in for today's class. Classes are according to Central European Time, CET. You can Google that and check the time zone difference. 25th to 31st today, right? So today we're doing reading strategy. Tomorrow it's another task 2 class that's being requested by some of our members. Okay. Listening tests, as I just mentioned, general IELTS. Check us out at gieltshelp.com, and also we have another YouTube channel called General IELTS Help, where we have our general IELTS classes. Okay, Sunday to Tuesday, no class, and then back on the 30th with speaking part 3, finishing the month off with some listening strategy and practice. Okay, let's have a look at today's passage. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. There it is. Coolio. Very important here, students. Notice that this is a reading passage 3. Okay. Reading passage 3 is more difficult than passage 2 and passage 1 usually. Anybody know why? Hi, Preeti. Good to see a member. Wondering when I'd see a member today. Unusually low number of members in today's class so far, anyway. There's another member. Hi, Jason. All right. Why is reading passage 3 more difficult than 1 and 2? Anybody knows? Thank you, Lovepreet. Well, there are a couple reasons. Obviously, the topic is often more difficult. Passage 1, passage 2, academic IELTS, will often be some kind of physical, visible, tangible topic like tigers, elephants, cars. So something that you can really picture and touch. And then passage 3 will often be intangible or abstract. So something that you cannot touch. It's not physical. So this passage here is about the causes of the American economic crisis. So it's an economics, social type of topic. It's more difficult. It's more specific. Okay. Vocabulary, grammar that's used in the passage is often more difficult as well. Okay, good. So let's have a look at the questions. See if we should read them. Okay. Before we do that, let's really go step by step. So causes of the American economic crisis. When did the United States have an economic crisis? Anybody? Look at the picture. You see some stock figures there. Anybody remember when the United States had the economic downturn these days? Yeah, many of you, especially if you're closer to my age, probably remember 2008. That's right, 2008. So when you read the title, think about that. Okay, don't just skip over the title. 2008, Haifa. 2009, you're not far off. It was 2008 to 2010 was a really bad time in the U.S., and that affected the whole world. Okay. Mad Max, I'm from Canada, very, very close to the U.S. Okay, I have lots of friends in the U.S. I'm only 50 kilometers from the U.S. border, actually even closer than that, 30. Okay. Why did that happen? Anybody remember why the American economic crisis happened? Why was that? Why did that happen? So you really have to think about what, why, how before you start to read, because that can really help you with the answers. Okay, IELTS doesn't lie, so they use true facts. Vishit says something with the subprime mortgage. Yeah, there's a more simple way to say it, Vishit. Vanshika says lack of money in the market. Yeah, kind of. Okay. Yeah. Sammy, if you've done this before, don't worry. You might learn a different strategy today, so hang in there. Okay. I don't think I've done this reading in quite some time. All right. So, yeah, lack of money. People borrowing money they cannot pay back. Banks generating too much money. Okay. Hi, Arcana. Good to see you in class. Yeah. And it eventually led to the collapse of the market. Okay, good. So let's look at the questions before we read the passage. So here, the question is yes, no, not given. Should I read this question or skim read it, scan it before the passage? Is that a good idea? Yeah, so some of you are answering that how question. Yeah. A lot of people losing money, collapse of the market. Sure. No, we shouldn't. Yeah, thank you, Sevgi and Haifa. No, we shouldn't read this one. There's no not given answers in there, which just confuse you if you read it before. Good. Here we have a sentence completion type question. Should I read the questions and the answers for this one? So what's a good strategy for this question? I have to complete 31, 32, 33. Should I read these three and read the answers? Is that a good idea to do before the passage? Haifa says, yeah, read it. Sandeep says, but only the questions. And Sandeep and Haifa are right. Yeah, with this one, only read these three questions, okay? So banks have a responsibility too. So banks have a responsibility. Read with me, nice and loud. So let's read together. Okay, read loud. Each bank is responsible for. A recession is started when? Great. I'm not reading these choices. Notice there's 6, okay? There's 6 choices and there are 3 questions. So I do not read the choices because 3 of these are clearly wrong, and that's confusing. It's a 50-50. I don't want to read a 50-50 before the passage. Doesn't make sense. 34 to 39. It's a summary completion type question. The American government's role. Should I read this one before I read the passage? Again, this is reading passage 3. You have to be very good with your strategy. Okay. So should I read this one? Yeah, hopefully a lot of you are thinking right now, yeah, I think that's all information taken from the passage, so you should read it. Yes, you should. Okay, Sami, you're right. Robin, you're right. So let's read it. The American government's role. It is the American government which is arguably most responsible for the economic crisis. In order to properly, people must be sheltered from possible problems created by. Regulation is required in any society in order to coerce people into acting for the benefit of. Government is in place to serve its citizens, and in this case it has failed. Apologists will say that the recession is just on the radar of the American supremacy, while others say that such bumps on the road are of serious problems. Regulation is the solution to the problem, but the American of independence and small government will be very difficult to crack. Good. Oh, look at that. One more question. Question 40. Choose the correct letter, A, B, C, or D, multiple choice. I got 4 choices. I have the question here. Should I read this question before the passage? So should I read all of this here before the passage? Haifa says no. And you're right, Haifa. Just like with the complete the sentence ending, only read information before passage that is in the passage. This part will be somewhere in the passage. Only one of these 4 is in the passage. So it's very confusing. It's misleading. I don't want to focus on this. I don't want to waste time with the choices. So just this here, okay? The brain's not linear. If you read this before the passage, then you read the passage, it will just confuse you. It will not help you. So number 40, which of the following phrases best describes the main aim of the reading passage? So this is not only multiple choice, but it's an inference type question. No surprise, it's the very last question in the reading. It's very high level, okay? All right. Let's keep going here. Bibas 3 times, of course. That's how we do some of our research for this, for what we're doing. Okay, so let's look at the passage now that we've looked at the questions and begin reading. Here we go. All right, again, it's a little bit difficult. It's passage 3. Don't stress, don't panic. If you feel like, I don't understand anything, I'm out of here. Yeah, don't do that. Just hang in there. You'll learn. Don't worry. Here we go. Arcana says multiple choice is my enemy. Yes, for many students, Arcana. All right, here we go, students. So let's do this together. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to help you. Learn with me. When discussing the causes of the late... Oh, and again, please read loud. Okay, one more time from the top. When discussing the causes of the late 2000s American subprime mortgage crisis, it is easy to lay all the blame on the banks, but it is incorrect to claim innocent the individual home buyers involved, as well as the American government as a whole. There are many instances in the years leading up to the crisis where moral obligations failed to be met. For the home buyers, it is a case of ignoring a scenario which was, upon deeper inspection, too good to be true. For the bankers, it was falling prey to their own laissez-faire loaning policies, lending without giving much interest to the mandates required of the borrower. For the government, it was instituting such a laissez-faire system in the first place, free of regulatory checks and balances. Okay, when you're reading a hard passage 3, a difficult passage 3, you should always do, when you're practicing at home, when you're preparing for IELTS, you should always do critical reading. What is this first paragraph about? And if you think, hey, this is more difficult than the real IELTS, no, it's not. Many students who have done the real IELTS, academic IELTS, and read this passage say, yeah, I have seen passages that difficult in my real IELTS exam. So yeah, it does get that tough. All right. Haifa, yeah, I will. Yeah, I will look at some of the more difficult vocabulary and teach you some neat ways to learn that. Okay. So what is this first paragraph about, students? What are we reading here? Okay. What is it about? The cause of the economic crisis. Yeah, so Preeti, absolutely. The main causes. So the entities that caused the economic crisis. Sure. So let me just jot that down for you here. Absolutely. So that's the what. Okay, what it's about. Why? So why does the paragraph introduce this information? Okay. So you have the what. Why? Why does it introduce that information? Well, to give a clear understanding to the reader, to give a clear understanding that it wasn't just one entity or one group that's responsible for this. It is multiple groups here responsible. So to be more specific, 3. Okay, and how? 1, people borrowing money irresponsibly. 2, banks lending irresponsibly. And 3, government ignoring the dangers. Okay, so that's the how, all right? So again, when you're practicing your critical reading at home and you read the paragraph and you go, okay, what, why, how? Then these are the answers you should arrive at, okay? Furkan says, shouldn't we first skim and scan? No, absolutely not, Furkan. If you try to skim and scan this difficulty of a passage, there's just no way that you can get answers correct. Just go slowly, step by step. Practice this at home. There's no way that skimming and scanning will work for a passage 3 like this. You will just get frustrated, angry, upset at the world, at yourself, at IELTS, and maybe start throwing your pencil at the window in the examination room or something. So there's no point in doing that, okay? Just pace yourself, go step by step, do your best, and at least you won't lose your mind. Okay, so that's the what, that's the why, that's the how, that's what you should arrive at. Okay, let's go back here for a little bit. Don't just keep, if you don't understand what the paragraph is about, why and how, don't just keep reading. Okay, when you're practicing this at home, don't just keep reading. You have to stop, you have to try to understand. If you say, well, Adrian, I don't get this because there's just so many words that I don't know. Hi, Abhishek, good to see you in class. So, a lot of you probably say, well, I just don't know. I just don't know many of these words. So then you have to take a step back and you have to understand what these words actually mean, all right? And learn vocabulary. So like I say, today is a little bit of vocab learning combined with reading. What is a new word? Give me a couple of new words for some of our viewers here, and then I'll show you some effective learning strategy for vocabulary. We'll also look at how you can understand those words out of context, okay? Kevin, absolutely right. Skimming generally will just waste a lot of time, okay? Okay. Fraziak says subprime, sure. Okay, subprime and mortgage. Let's take mortgage as a very important one. Okay, mortgage is a noun. It's a special type of loan. Okay, specific for housing. So when you get a loan for your house, that is called a mortgage. It's the biggest loan that most people will ever incur in their life. And it has a name. If you want to know the ancient etymology of that word, so where it originates from, it actually means a life contract or a death contract, because in the old days, that was your mortgage. So when you got a loan to get a house, you had to pay it or you until you were alive, or that's it. So it's basically a death contract. But a mortgage today, we just use it commonly in everyday language to mean the loan on your house. So it's your house loan, okay, is your mortgage. The T is silent, don't pronounce it, so mortgage, okay? It's a special loan specifically for your house, okay? Lofoten says, things haven't changed that much. I tend to agree, Lofoten, but we won't get into politics, okay? All right, so it's a special type of loan. It's used for housing. Okay, when you're learning vocabulary, your first step is define the word. So write down the word in your vocabulary notes. Hopefully you have a little vocabulary book. Then define it. Give the part of speech. So it's a noun. It's a special loan for housing or for buying a house. And then write an example. The example should be complex and it should include yourself and it should be interesting, okay? Such as this. I just got a $2 million loan, mortgage, from the bank to buy a mansion with a swimming pool because I plan to keep ducks at home. All right. So here is an effective example to help you remember new vocabulary that you're learning. Some students, they like to learn by repetition. So they'll say the word mortgage 10 times each day. They'll go mortgage, 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 mortgage. Mortgage means a house loan. Mortgage means a house loan. Mortgage, mortgage, mortgage. And then the next day they'll do the same thing. They'll go mortgage, mortgage, mortgage. And they'll write it down like 10 times in a row. Mortgage, mortgage, mortgage. That's called rote memory. Ask a psychologist. They will tell you it's not that effective for most people. The human brain is not a rote machine, okay? It doesn't remember by repetition as much. It remembers by connections. Even biologically speaking, it's like a web. It's neural connections forming a web. So memory by what's called association, memory by connection, memory by association is much, much more effective. That's why you should adjust your learning strategy to learn by connecting information, okay? A mansion is a big, big house, E machine N, okay? Neural connections, Mahevi, that's right, neural connections. So this is one way to create neural connections. You create neural connections for new vocabulary by writing example sentences that are complex, unique, and include you. I includes me. Got a $2 million mortgage. Whoa, $2 million. Wow. Surprising. So interesting. From the bank to buy a mansion. A mansion is a big house. With a swimming pool. Great. Because is cause and effect. So it's a complex sentence. I plan to keep ducks at home. You can't plan to keep what? Ducks at home? That's why you need a swimming pool in a mansion? That's strange. My brain is lighting up, neurons are firing, and not just today, but tomorrow, next month, I will remember this vocabulary. So I will remember the word mortgage. Now, what you should do is you should use a different colored pen or pencil for the word that you're learning, okay? And the reason for that is, or a highlighter, okay? Maybe I shouldn't do that because you can't see it. So I'll just do a different color. Here we go. Just give me a second. Just so that it's very clear what the word is that you're actually learning. Okay. So make sure to use a different colored pen or pencil. Okay. When you're doing this. All right. So the word is mortgage, and that's a good example. Here, let's take the next paragraph, and we'll do more words. So we'll go step by step here. Let's read the next paragraph. Again, we'll go through the what, why, how. We'll pick out one word, and we'll keep going step by step, and then we will answer the questions also. So here we go. Read with me nice and loud. So what I'm doing today is exactly what you want to do at home when you're preparing for IELTS, especially for difficult Section 3, okay? Joanne Key is asking, should we start from the most difficult passage and then go to the easiest ones? Absolutely not, Joanne. You should start with the easiest passage and go to the more difficult. Give yourself a chance to build up to the more difficult packages. Yeah, keep ducks at home, Zuhur. That's right. What the heck? All right, here we go. Read with me. If a person falls prey to an email scam, the blame is deservedly placed on the hapless person. Society feels pity for them, but nobody feels the government should reimburse the individual for their lack of caution. The person in this scenario has affected no one but themselves. If a person falls prey to a too good to be true subprime mortgage and ends up bankrupt, he or she is not just hurting themselves, they are also hurting society, because that debt inevitably rests with the populace. Thus, while a person has no social responsibility to act a certain way, in the case of the email scam, a person does have a social obligation when it comes to actions that can hurt society, such as taking on a subprime mortgage. The counter-argument here is that people perceive banks as possessing a certain level of trustworthiness, and that it is unreasonable to expect people to have their too-good-to-be-true radar active when dealing with banks. Nevertheless, people do have an ethical obligation to be aware of pitfalls, and being told it's okay by trustworthy institutions is simply not a sufficient excuse. All right, what are we reading about here? So what is this paragraph about? Give me some answers, students. Muflik MK, recommendation for practice material for academic IELTS. Scientific America magazine is a good one. Okay. Abhishek says scam, an email scam. Yeah, so we're reading about social responsibility according to Rabin. And that's right. More or less, we're reading about an example of social responsibility, which is the email scam, right? Why are we reading about this? So good. Social responsibility is a very nice answer, Rabin. Absolutely. Why are we reading about this? Sevgi says people shouldn't be stupid and fall into traps, pitfalls, is why we're reading about this. In some way, it's a very colloquial way to put it, Sevgi. Very raw way to say it, but in some way you're correct. It's basically expressing to the reader that there isn't an excuse for making mistakes when it comes to mortgages. So when you purchase a mortgage, you can't just say, oh, I didn't know. I picked up a $100,000 loan. I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. So people are responsible. How does the paragraph prove that point? So how does the paragraph prove the point that people should be responsible when they purchase or get a loan? Well, by giving the comparison of an email scam versus getting a subprime mortgage. By the way, that student who asked about the subprime mortgage, what does it mean, subprime mortgage? Prime is the interest rate that is set by the central bank of a government. And I'm not an economist, so I'm not an expert on this, but the prime is the interest rate that's set by the bank. It's basically the rate of inflation or matched to the rate of inflation, and subprime means that it's below that rate. So you're basically getting money cheaper than what it's actually worth, technically, something like that. So you might want to investigate that, especially if you're into economics. But as far as I know, subprime is basically getting a loan at a rate that's better than minimum. Okay? Froziox, yeah. Okay, so there's your answer, more or less. All right, good. What is a new word here? Students, pick out a new word. So give me a new word. Yeah, so Abhishek Dangwal says it's a subsidized rate. Basically, the bank is subsidizing that rate. Okay, so hapless. Okay. Pitfall. Inevitably. So lots of new words here. Okay. Let's take the word hapless. All right. Or you know what? I think well, we can take hapless, sure. Hapless. Okay, so we can see in the passage, when I go back here, hapless. Anybody know the definition of hapless? So the hapless person, so clearly it's an adjective, right? Because hapless is modifying the object here, person of the sentence. Anybody know the meaning of hapless without me giving it to you? It's an adjective which means unsuspecting, unfortunate. Yep, absolutely. Unfortunate. Okay, is good. So it kind of includes all of that. It's unlucky, unfortunate, unsuspecting, and helpless. Obviously, somebody who's unsuspecting and helpless is unfortunate. So unfortunate person. Unfortunate is your closest synonym, okay? Sure. So unfortunate, so on. All right, so now we want to write an example sentence. So remember, your example sentence should be complex, include yourself, and be interesting. Can you students give me, or viewers, ladies and gents, give me some example sentences with the word hapless? It's not helpless, but close. It's easy to remember from the idea of helpless. It's hapless. So can somebody give me an example sentence? Include yourself, make it interesting, and make it complex. Okay. Reimburse, Mahesh, means to give back. Populace is the population, Pachu. It's another way to say population. It is the populace of a country. All right. Reimburse, to again, Sami Chowdhury, means to give back, reimburse. Okay. So Nawaj Sharaf says, here's how hapless India could still sneak into the ICC T20 WC semis. All right. Interesting, but it's not complex and it doesn't include you. So you should say, here's how I could enjoy watching hapless India sneak into the. So you could make that, Nawaj, into something that's more personal and complex. Phrasiaks, hapless animals are being hunted by who or whom, and make it complex, include yourself, okay? Again, remember, make those connections. It's really important to include yourself. A lot of you are forgetting to include yourself. Eunice, you could still include yourself in a sentence with hapless, just don't modify yourself as the noun of that adjective, okay? Vishit says, hapless me was subjected to a June dish by the restaurant. Okay, because I had no idea what I ordered, Vishit, would be a good way to say that, okay? Mohammed, we will get to the yes, no, not given questions soon in the lesson, okay? So, all right, I came across a hapless dog which was caught in a wire fence. So not read, that was an F when I moved my finger, I thought. There we go. So I freed it and gave it milk to drink and steak to eat. There we go. So that's kind of humane sentence where I'm not modifying myself with hapless. I'm modifying the word dog. It's a compound sentence. I'm using the word so. Okay. So again, repeat. I came across a hapless dog which was caught in a wire fence. So I freed it and gave it milk to drink and steak to eat. Very benevolent, very kind. I'm helping out the dog. And I'm remembering the word hapless, okay? All right. Now, here is an interesting strategy for advanced students who are really, pushing to learn for those high bands and learn English really well. When you've done a lot of reading. So when you read the passages, you find new words, you write out their meanings, you write these complex, compound sentences. Then what you can start doing when you review, so when you're reviewing vocabulary, to strengthen the vocabulary, to improve your English even more and improve your writing. By the way, this strategy that I'm teaching you, it's not just teaching you vocabulary, it's teaching you to improve your grammar and your writing as well, of course, okay? Teaching Guru, that's a good example as well. Okay, so here we go to when you review vocabulary, that you learned, write combination examples. All right. So what I mean is take this third step here. So again, what I said before, a lot of students, what they do is they do vocabulary learning by repetition. So repeat, repeat, repeat. So they'll go hapless, 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 hapless dog, hapless man, hapless soul, hapless chicken, I don't know. That's okay, but it's much better to learn by association, so connecting information. So instead of writing the word down 100 times and then writing it down 2 weeks later again 100 times, what you can do is you can do these combination sentences. So you can take two words that you've learned in your reading passage and combine them into one example. So we can take the word mortgage and we can take the word hapless, okay? And you can write one sentence complex includes you, and interesting. Okay? So, students, ladies and gents, give me an example sentence that includes the word mortgage, includes the word hapless. It's an interesting sentence, it's a complex sentence, and it includes you. Okay? That's a bit more challenging, but a very, very effective way to learn vocabulary. You only need to do it once, and you will be able to learn that vocabulary effectively so that you can not only understand it in your reading, but you can also use it in your speaking and writing. Okay? So give me a sentence that combines mortgage with hapless in any way. So Violeta Castro Paredes says, I lost my mortgage in a game of poker, and that was a very hapless situation because I ended up living on the streets of New York. Okay, Violeta, that's good. Just make it complex. So you got 2 of the 3. So Violeta, you got the word mortgage in there. You got the word hapless in there, which is great. You included yourself. You made it interesting, which is fantastic. Make it complex, a little bit more complex, okay? Amar Wadi says, I was hapless when I got a mortgage loan last year because it was at an extremely high rate. Amar Wadi, I really hope that's not true because I know these days that's actually true for a lot of people. But it's a good example nonetheless, okay? It's a very simple but good example. Jason G says, despite that I'm facing a hapless situation, comma, I had a great opportunity to have a long-term mortgage from the Central Bank of Warsaw. Jason, good. Couple of grammar mistakes there. Notice that. So despite that I'm facing a hapless situation, comma, I got a great opportunity for a long-term mortgage from the Central Bank of Warsaw. Very nice, Jason. I like it. Okay, good. Maria Ilya says, I want to get a mortgage to buy a new house, but due to my hapless situation, I couldn't find a bank to give it to me. Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one, Maria. Okay, so I want to get a mortgage or buy a mortgage because you actually buy a loan. So I want to get a mortgage for a nice new house, but due to my hapless financial situation, no bank will take me seriously. Okay, fantastic, students. That's brilliant. So that's how you do it, okay? That's how you remember words long term so that you can not only understand them, but you can use them. Good job. All right. Hats off to all of you for those wonderful examples. Okay, great. Okay, let's complete this reading now. So let's read the rest of this passage. Let's answer the questions together. Here we go. So read nice and loud. You now understand the vocabulary practice. You know what you need to do at home. You can use this passage later today or tomorrow or later in the week and go through it step by step. Okay, let's get some reading done. Here we go. Read with me nice and loud. Banks have a responsibility to protect their customers and to look out for the general economic health of not just their company, but the entire industry. The American banks failed in these considerations in each of these regards. First, they offered mortgages to millions of ill-qualified buyers who were clearly not going to be able to fulfill the requirements of the mortgage to make the loans viable. Individual lenders acted selfishly, exploiting very relaxed lending policies to benefit their own finances. Second, banks failed to look after the health of their own companies. This is not a failure of individual bankers, but a failure of those in management positions. Many U.S. companies that need a multi-billion-dollar bailout are an unmitigated disaster. Although this failure falls more in line with the email scam, that is to say a failure which is not a social failure but a business failure, the social failure lies in the bank's obligation to the entire industry and the economy as a whole. Each bank is responsible for a small piece of the economic pie. If one bank fails, it appears as a blip on the radar. However, with each individual failure, the threshold for failure for the remaining companies is lowered. It is in this sense that companies have a moral obligation to do good business, because if they do not, they raise the chances of bankruptcy for each of their competitors and the economy as a whole. Eventually, the threshold of failure is so low that almost all lending has to cease and a recession is ignited. What is this paragraph about? The responsibility of banks. Why? Without the banks being responsible, economies fail. How? The problems with individual lenders working for the banks, with management, and a disrespect for the system causes inflation and eventually recession. Let's keep going. Once you get really good at reading, you'll be fast at the what, why, how. Okay, here we go. Fraziak, good for you. You got that. Okay, let's keep going, students. Again, bear with me. I know it's tough reading, but hey, sometimes tough is good. IELTS Section 3 does get this difficult. In this investigation of blame placing, arguably the body who holds the most responsibility is the American government. The truth is that if people are not protected from themselves by the government, society cannot function well. The wholly free market is akin to an economic version of Hobbes' state of nature, people acting like tigers and bears trying to get at each other's money. Society does not work optimally when it pays overwhelming dividends for people to act selfishly. It takes regulation and economic policy to force people into acting in society's best interest. One of the duties of a government is to protect its citizens from each other. And in this case, the American government has failed catastrophically. Defenders of the free market will claim that this recession is simply a temporary bump in the road for what is arguably the greatest economic power in world history. They will claim that the free market is in the best interest of everyone, despite its rather unsightly undercarriage. In response, it can be argued that the bumps in the road are symptomatic of a system in need of healing by means of regulation. Unfortunately, American culture is such that any regulation is seen as government interference in private affairs. And such intervention conflicts with American ideals. Economics is not the only arena where this belief system is played out. Americans continue to allow their poorest citizens to live without proper health care, and they put the burden of the cost of higher education directly on students. Many European countries fully subsidize higher education. Until this distaste for government intervention is cast aside, events like the subprime mortgage crisis will continue to occur. Whether they are merely bumps on the economic road or signs of forthcoming systemic collapse, in both cases, the government has failed to fulfill their role to save citizens from themselves. In regard to subprime mortgages, regulation of banking is like an insurance policy for the economy. It may lower profits, insurance policies cost money, but it smooths out the bumps in the road. As long as the American government continues to turn a blind eye to these insurance policies, they will continue to put the social well-being of its citizens at risk. All right, what is that paragraph about? It's about the responsibility of the government. Why? Well, because if the government lets society and individuals do as they wish, then they're like tigers and bears, fighting and clawing for money. How can government do this? Well, by paying more attention to its citizens through regulations and policies so that it keeps people in check, keeps companies in check, okay? That's the main what, why, how in this case. Now, here we have 4 big paragraphs, but you can understand it in a simple way. Paragraph 1, introduction, introduces the idea of the American crisis and the 3 reasons for it: individuals, banks, and the government. Body paragraph 1, individuals, why they're responsible, how they're responsible. Body paragraph 2, banks, what they did, why they're responsible, how they're responsible. Body paragraph 3, nice big long one, American government, why they're responsible, how they're responsible. So very clearly structured passage. If you are a higher band student, you should understand at least 60-70%. Okay, let's go through the questions and the answers. Here we go. Yes, no, not given. Number 27. Those that fall for common scams deserve to be compensated by society. So according to the author, is that yes, no, or not given? Well, first question, is it important? Is it important to know whether or not people that fall for scams for this American crisis, economic crisis, is it important to know the answer to this kind of a question? Yes, it is. Absolutely. Because it's connected to the economics of failure. Okay, so it's an important question. Is it true? No, it's not. Remember the email scam? That's obviously for the individual. So, if a person falls prey to an email scam, the blame is deservedly placed on the, now we know, unfortunate person. Society feels bad for them, but nobody feels the government should give the money back for the individual. So it's right there in that first sentence. Okay, so the author says they don't need to get that money back. So, common email scam? No, absolutely not. Okay, so the answer there is they should not be. Okay, they do not deserve to be. Number 28. Many homeowners are too young and irresponsible. Is it important to know the age of people buying the houses for the article of the economic American crisis? Is it important to know the age of people who buy it? Absolutely not. It's way too much detail. It's completely irrelevant. Whether it's young or old, doesn't matter. It's not important. It's not given. Okay, don't overcomplicate your thoughts. Keep it simple. Society trusts the banking system. So people believe in the banking system. We say, oh yeah, the bank knows what they're doing. Is it important for the topic whether or not people trust the banking system? For the American economic crisis, is it important to know whether or not people trust the banking system? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the big reasons for this whole situation. So good for you. Okay, I'm paying attention to what a lot of you are saying in the chat. You're saying, yes, it is. Absolutely it is, okay? So, Sami, Chidhara, yeah, it's absolutely important. Is it true? According to this author, do people trust the banks? Do they say, oh yeah, here's my money. Please save it. I know it's safe in your bank. Do we give the banks our money to keep safe? Do we trust them? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, definitely. So, yes. Yeah, according to the author, which is true in the real world, IELTS doesn't lie. It uses real facts as well. People trust the banking system. Number 30, home buyers have an ethical obligation to be aware of trustworthy institutions. So according to this author, is it true that people should be cautious, okay, have to be cautious of institutions like banks that seem trustworthy. Is that important to know for this topic? Yeah, absolutely, right? The individuals. So yeah, it's absolutely important. Is it true? Do people have to be careful, according to this author, with banks, where banks are like, oh yeah, trust me, I'll give you $1 million at, say, 10% interest, and hey, no worries, you'll make lots more, and it's all good. Should I be like, maybe not so much? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So yes and yes for that last one. Yes and yes, definitely. Okay. If somebody wants to throw a lot of money at you, careful. Nobody's in the game to lose money. Always have your critical thinking cap on. What, why, how? Why does this person suddenly want to give me so much money? It's a good question. Okay. Unfortunately, most of the time, it's not because banks or people are so generous and such good-willed, okay? It's possible, but the chances are low. So careful. Use your critical thinking cap. Okay, let's finish this. So 31, banks have a responsibility to what? Okay. Banks have a responsibility to what? You should try to answer this without looking at the options. So hopefully a lot of this is coming from body paragraph 2, right? First one was individuals, so it went introduction, individuals, banks, government. So we know that this is coming from that second body paragraph, okay? The third paragraph, the second body paragraph. We remember banks have a responsibility to keep money safe for Aussie Elks, but they have a responsibility for each other, so for the other banks, and for the industry, right? They have a responsibility for the banking or financial industry, okay? Let's see if any of our choices match. Okay, so if I finish this sentence with my own understanding, I say banks have a responsibility to safeguard the industry, safeguard financial industry. Okay. Breathing room for failure? No. Reassure people that it's okay to borrow money? No. Instructing their employees to lend to ill-qualified buyers? Absolutely not. They're a small part of the big economic picture. Doesn't make sense. Even the grammar doesn't match. Protect the industry they are a part of. Hey, that looks really good. The banks have to receive a bailout from government. That doesn't make sense, and even the grammar is wrong. That one will work. E. So if I read those two together, banks have a responsibility to protect the industry they are a part of. Fantastic. If you pick that one, good for you. Okay? Makes sense. So E finishes that sentence. Each bank is responsible for what? Well, for its own piece, right? For its own part of that whole picture. That's what it's for its clients, maybe. Let's see if any of those match. So each bank is responsible for the breathing room for failure is so low. No. Reassure the people that it's okay to borrow money. That's kind of strange. Instructing their employees to lend. That's completely wrong. So I'm going to take that out. Ill-qualified means not qualified. So somebody working at McDonald's trying to buy a $2 million home is an ill-qualified buyer. That doesn't make sense. So just take that one out. They're a small part of the big economic picture. That looks pretty good. E, we already have. The banks have to receive a bailout. No, so I'm going to go with D. They're a small part. Each bank is responsible for their little part. So I would say D is the right answer there. Okay. So 31E, 32D, 33. A recession is started when? Well, let's keep it simple. Banks fail. Okay. So the breathing room for failure is so low that lending has to stop. Reassure the people, instructing their employees. No. Small part. Nope. Say A. Yeah, Jalpa, very good. You caught that fast. Good. Good for you. So E, D, and A. A recession starts when there's such small room for failure that basically banks stop lending money. Okay? When banks no longer give money, then recession starts, right? Because the flow of money is disrupted or paused in society. That's a big problem. Money has to keep flowing. It has to keep changing hands, okay? So those are your answers there. Okay, here we have some choices. Everyone, popularity, blip, desires, signs, borrow, themselves, culture, function, government. Let's answer, fill this in. The American government's role. So this summary is coming from the last paragraph, right? Remember, introduction, individual, banks, and government. So now we're on to that government paragraph. It is the American government which is arguably most responsible for the economic crisis. In order to something properly, people must be sheltered from possible problems. In order to function maybe properly, I would say would be a good word there. Function. Frasiak says function seems right. Let's see. Do we have that in there? Yes, we do. We have function right here, H. So make sure in your answer sheet you don't write the word function, but you actually put the letter H. Okay? So in order to function properly, people must be sheltered from possible problems created by who? Who creates the problems in society? So people must be sheltered from possible problems created by... Yeah, that's right. Roshni says, by themselves. Yeah, absolutely. By people. Who creates problems? People create problems. For who? For themselves. That's right. I shouldn't laugh, but it's the ironic nature of our world. So D, themselves. Yeah. Absolutely. So problems created by people. Hey, in the past, not so long ago, animals maybe created problems for us. Nature sometimes creates problems for us, but these days, it's most often people creating problems for people. Regulation is required in any society in order to coerce people. Coerce means convince or force people into acting for the benefit of everyone, of society, of all people, something like that. So the government has to say, hey, okay, no speeding. You can't drive crazy fast. Why? Because you'll kill someone and kill yourself. So regulation is required to keep society safe, right? So benefit of society, everyone, A. Okay, Japa, very good. Yeah, absolutely. So benefit of everyone. Why does the government say no speeding? Well, because they want everybody to survive on their way home from work and school. Okay, government is in place to serve its citizens, and in this case, it has failed. Apologists are people who apologize, will say that the recession is just something on the radar. Okay, if you have a radar, right? And suddenly, as this radar is moving around and around, you've probably seen that in movies, maybe even real life, the airport, then suddenly, boom, okay, lights up, there's an airplane or something there, a boat, if you're on the ocean. That's called a blip on the radar, all right? It could be a little bit tricky if you don't know that vocabulary. It's a blip, because it goes blip. It is, anybody know there's a special word for English words that sound like what they are, like buzz, okay? Buzz or blip. There's a special word for those. I'll remember it in a second. But it is a blip, okay? So blip. Yeah, blip. Yeah, there's a special group of words in English that sound like what they mean. And we have a word that describes that in literary devices. So, blip. E. Okay, good. All right. While others say that such bumps on the road are something of serious problems, are indications, are signs, are warnings, something like that of serious problems. There it is. I, signs. Okay, good. Regulation is the solution to the problem, but the American something of independence and small government will be very difficult to crack. The American belief or American system of independence, that would be my guess there. Okay. So let's see anything that's matching with system or, yeah, culture. Culture matches with the word system, right? So F. Okay. Absolutely. All right, so those are the correct answers there. Again, practice this type of question at home. Think about answers on your own before you go searching. If you search first, there's a bigger chance or better chance that you will make a mistake. So don't search first. Okay. Here we go. Last question, students. Good on you for those of you who toughed it and hung in there with this difficult passage 3. Which of the following phrases best describes the main aim of reading passage 3? Okay, without looking at the possible choices, what is the main aim of this passage? What do you think? In your own words, what does this passage say? What's the main goal of it? What do you think? Lofoten says the main issue of the Americans, the main reasons of the American crisis. Yeah. So, put it another way, people, banks, and government are responsible for an economic crash, perhaps more the government than anybody. Okay, let's see if anything matches. To suggest that the recession is the fault of the American government alone? No. To suggest that people need to stop trusting banks? I don't think so. I don't think the main goal of the passage was, hey, just don't trust your bank, it'll be fine. To suggest that every person and company needs to be responsible for each other? Maybe. Passage does say we all need to be responsible for each other. To suggest that the American government needs to bail out companies when they need the money. I don't think so. I'm going to go with C. It's the best answer. Hopefully you agree with me. Okay. All right, students, that is reading passage 3. Let's check our answers real quick. I don't want to be arrogant and pretend that I didn't make any mistakes. So let's see how well we actually did there. All right, so here we go with the answer key. 27, no. 28, not given. 29, yes. 30, yes. So got those correct. Fantastic. Matching the endings, E, D, and A. That was great. That was done right. Okay. Paragraph completion, H, D, A, E, I, and F. Fantastic. 40, C. Correct. Perfect. Excellent job. Okay. Practice that at home. It can be a lot easier than you imagine when you do the right type of practice at home. So follow these steps. Make sure to do vocabulary learning. As I showed you, you'll save a lot of time. It's much, much more effective than rote memory, so memory by association. Students, thank you for joining me for this challenging academic IELTS Reading Passage 3 class. Again, give yourself a pat on the back. Congratulate yourself if you've stuck it through and you did a good job. Remember, practice your vocab at home. Write these interesting, unique, complex sentences that include you. I hope you found this lesson valuable. Tomorrow, it's a members chat. Members, make sure to be in tomorrow's class for a writing task 2 example. Yes, Pachu, this is absolutely the same level of difficulty as the official IELTS Passage 3, so it's important to keep that in mind. Keep up the good work, students. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If it's late in your country, get some rest. That must have been tough looking at that so late at night. I can't imagine doing that at 10, 11 p.m. In another language. It would be challenging, certainly. You deserve a good rest. Bye for now, everyone. Much love.